Good morning, my magnificent ones. Sue Paulson here, your magnificence mentor, and we're back with another episode of the Healing Call of Cancer. Have you ever had a moment in time where everything was just bliss? It was joyful, it was fun, it was energizing, you felt peaceful and serene, and when that moment passed, you said, oh, that was the best moment ever. And then did it flit through your mind, oh, I'm going to pay for this moment. Something bad will inevitably follow what just happened that was so good. Where did that come from? Well, I had that happen this weekend. It was a long weekend. I had 3 glorious days where I did exactly what I wanted and met with people that I wanted to be with, had lots of fun, lots of laughter, lots of great conversation. At the end of the 3 days, when it was time to get back to work, I thought, oh, that was amazing. I just had the best long weekend ever. And then this little thought flitted through my head. Well, of course it won't last. Now, I'm pretty self-aware. So I caught myself at that moment in time and said, wait a minute, who says this can't last? Who says I can't extend that joy that I felt into day 4, day 5, day 6, day 7, day 8, and just let it go, let it roll? And of course, you might say, and others might say to me, and even I might say to myself, oh, but life doesn't work that way, Sue. You know, there's the sour with the sweet, there's the ugly with the beautiful, there's there's all this contrast. And while that may be true, and to a certain extent it plays out that way, right? What if it all rests with what's going on inside us? What if how we deal with life plays a much bigger role than what life deals us? How about that? Well, I've looked at it from that perspective for lots of years. And while there were times in my life, particularly when I was going through cancer, where I felt very victimized and I felt that life was against me and I felt betrayed by what was going on in my body and all of the attendant things that came along with that, the shame, the guilt, the fear, the anger, on and on and on. So I've lived that, oh, bad things happen. And yet, really, in the final analysis, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. It took me a long time to figure that out, but it was the best thing that ever happened to me because it brought me face to face with my own sense of inner power. It brought me face to face with what I had and what I brought to the table as this magnificent being clothed in this human skin. Like, what is really the thing here? So I guess when I reflect that cancer for me was a powerful tool to bring me face to face with my own level of fear. And if you've had a cancer diagnosis, you know what I'm talking about. You know about that unreasoning terror just comes in like a wave and it just knocks you flat. Well, but what if a lot of that fear is not reasonable, is not realistic, is not even real? What if it's not real? So of course, when we get a diagnosis that's feels dire, and maybe is dire, people are saying, doctors saying to us, well, you could die. And I'm going, well, last I checked, that is inevitable. It's just a question of when. Am I going to die sooner, or am I going to die later? Am I going to die today, or is it going to be 25 years from now? I don't know. And so if we take the emotion out of the topic, if we take the heat out of that particular equation and say, all right, well, so what's really going on here now from a spiritual perspective, I know that I'm eternal. I know that you're eternal, that we don't, quotes, die. Oh, the physical body will eventually go back to the earth, just like trees go back to the earth, and every living thing goes back to the earth. We become dust. Well, that's just the scenario in this vessel we call the body. But of course, we've built this up of, well, but it's so important to live. Well, let's face it, if you don't have a body, where are you going to live? You won't be on this physical plane, at last I checked anyway. So it is important. But what I want to focus on today is to think about how often in our minds we throw ourselves over the cliff, or we're clinging to the brink of the abyss, terrified that we're going to fall, with no lifelines, no security, no anything to keep us safe, protect us, rescue us, whatever. And I want you to question yourself when you feel you're kind of on the precipice like that. Is that really true? Because so many of our fears that we think about on a day-to-day basis, or come charging in without us beckoning them, are unfounded. They don't happen. But we almost die 1,000 deaths imagining the worst that could happen. So I'll give you a little example. My daughter-in-law were at the Matart Conservatory here in Edmonton. It's a 4-pyramid structure that houses all kinds of cool tropical plants and desert plants from around the world, and a variety of things that are grown indoors, because in the wintertime, most of those plants would never survive. And so it's a cool place. Well, we were outside of the pyramids, and all of a sudden, my one granddaughter decides to take off and explore and run up to the top of this hill where this one pyramid was surrounded by a low concrete wall. Well, I didn't know what was up there, and my daughter-in-law didn't either. And you can't see beyond the pyramid to know, is there a big drop? Is it safe? Like what are we facing here? Well, she takes off like a shot, and 3.5-year-olds, they move fast. Well, I'm not 3 anymore. I don't move that fast. And so here's my daughter-in-law hollering at this child to stop and don't go any farther. Well, of course, she's her own person. She's just off on a mission, and she's not paying attention. Well, of course, all of these fears start erupting. I mean, if you're a parent, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Oh, there be dragons over there. And so I'm imagining all these things that could happen to her, not wanting to imagine any of them, of course, but they're just galloping along in my mind, and the adrenaline is just surging through my body, because that's what happens, right? When we're faced with a threat, physiologically, we're hardwired to react. We're hardwired to release all of the chemicals that we need to fight, freeze, or flee. And in this case, it was causing me to run up the hill and see where she was. So we're all focused on finding this child to make sure that she's not in danger. Well, of course, she was in no danger whatsoever. And she was just being who she was, exploring and looking at the world. And she comes back blithely as if it was no big deal, which of course it was no big deal, but we didn't know that. So that's the way we're wired, and it's a protective mechanism from caveman days and saber-toothed tigers and dinosaurs and the whole bit, because as humans in physical form, we're kind of puny, and we don't have the resources to fight something that's huge. So, but what we mistake is we mistake that natural wiring for the truth. We mistake it for more than it is. We think that is part of us, that's our emotions, that we can do nothing about that, when in fact we can. There's lots we can do to move beyond that, or to set that trigger aside. So I guess the word I want to introduce here is the word discipline. So discipline is the root of discipline is disciple. And all disciple means, oh, it's actually a pretty powerful word. What it means is to be a follower of. And so, of course, when we have discipline, we're following a particular, it could be a person, it could be a particular way of being. It doesn't really matter if we're a disciple of. So some people are disciples of order and cleanliness. So they're very disciplined to make sure that there's a place for everything and everything in its place, and the whole house is sparkling clean. So that's their discipline, and they've learned how to, because that was important to them. And I confess that's not I like the idea of cleanliness and order and all of that, and I do it, but I can't say that I'm a disciple of that. It's hard won for me. Sometimes my life is pretty chaotic and messy, and I look around and I go, oh dear. Well, that's me. So, but if company's coming, I'm a little more disciplined in getting myself organized. So back to disciple. We have been, through no fault of our own, from when we were very small, disciplined to believe that fear is king, that fear rules us. And of course, because we believed it, so there's a belief system going on here, and we were given evidence along the way. Look what happened. I told you not to do that. You know, you touched the stove. I told you it was hot, and now you burned your hand. And oh, well, I was right to, mom was right to be fearful about that. And so we make all these conclusions at a time when we don't have the mental horsepower to make sense of it. It's only when we get to adulthood that we start to question and say, well, is that really true? And in lots of cases, it's not true, or it never happened, or it's never going to happen. So, but we're very disciplined in the way we approach the idea of anything that's fearful to us, and terror can spike like bam, just like that. It can be just like an instant trigger. Well, what happens to our bodies when that happens? Well, there's this surge of chemicals, because that's the way we're wired, to help us deal with whatever's in front of us. But if it's not a physical threat, it's an emotional one. Where do we go with that? Where do we go with that whole realm? And how do we calm ourselves down? So because we've been disciplined in this fashion for so many years, and the reaction is just like hair trigger, if there's a way out, and there absolutely is, you're way more powerful than any fear that ever crosses your path. But the way out requires not only a shift in thinking, but a discipline to bring on the new. So an easy example of that, probably most of you have been through some kind of time management training in your work life, where they say, oh, well, it's all about managing your time. And it takes, and so you have some habits that maybe are getting in the way of you managing your time better, or your productivity, or whatever. And so it's, well, it takes 30 days or 21 days or whatever it is to change a habit. It's something you need to do consistently every day, every day, every day, every day. Well, the same thing holds true for shifting this mindset you have that the world is a scary / evil / ugly place, to the world is a beautiful place. The world is a safe place. The world is an amazing place. And so that's one shift, right? The external shift. I'll get to that in a second. And so then there's the other part of it. So that's what I want to talk about next. So it's like going to, let's say you go to the mall, the big mall, the mega mall, where everything that you could possibly want is at the mall. And you're standing on the sidewalk looking at the big entrance doors. You know that there are, so let's imagine for a moment that there are parts of the mall that are very scary. And you've been told, well, don't go to that part of the mall, but you can go to this part. This part of the mall has all the goodies. This part of the mall, yeah, I don't think you want to go there. Well, how are you going to get at the goodies? Well, you have to go inside. That's where all the goodies are, inside. Now, we've been going to that part of the mall for a long time, where it's scary and horrifying and maybe even deathly, and on and on and on. But there's a well-carved path over to that particular part of the mall. And it seems as if in our minds that the part of the mall where all the goodies are, the things that we most desire, well, it's been kind of roped off, right? It's been roped off. And we look at the velvet rope and we go, well, I don't have a ticket. Nobody told me I could go there. And maybe I'm not special enough. Maybe I'm not strong enough. Maybe I have to earn my way to go there. And there don't seem to be any rules. There's no sign, but something tells me that maybe I'm not allowed to go there, because I've only been told this is where you go. So we stop ourselves from unhooking the rope and going in where all the goodies are. So I want to tell you right now, you deserve to be where all the goodies are. You deserve to experience all of your heart's desire. So what's stopping you? You are. Just like I stopped myself for lots of years saying, oh no, I'm even though I'm uncomfortable with the bad, quotes bad, and the ugly, I'm used to it. I'm used to being uncomfortable. And that's kind of comfortable in a very odd sort of way. All right. Then we have some life experiences that cause us to go, wait a minute, like, hold the phone here. I want to think about this a little differently. So how do you rescue yourself then? How do you move through so that you say, okay, I want to be where the goodies are? That's inside. You know what? That's inside, literally inside you. You might need some help though. You might need some help, and you might need some rescue from clinging to the precipice and stopping you from falling into the abyss, because it can be all too easy to just fall down into the abyss. So I wanted to just give you a few rescue remedies that I've used to great benefit that will help you become a disciple of all of what you desire, a disciple of joy, peace, happiness, ecstasy, all of the treasures that are already inside of us. We just haven't understood that we can access them at will, and we can learn to have them that fast. So it's making the switch, right? So let me just look at my notes here. The one rescue remedy, get to my little tablet. Okay, well, first and foremost, self-understanding is, if we're not aware, if we never question anything about how we think, what's going on with life, why this instead of this, why didn't I pick that instead of that, if we never open up to that thinking part of us, that observer that says, well, that was interesting. When you did that, you had that consequence. Now, what if you were to do this instead? If we don't open up to that, then it's pretty hard to realize where we're stuck. And there's a madness about that. There's an insanity about that that can be so debilitating and really prevent us from getting where we say we want to go. So that's the first one, is to open up to some new understanding. So I like to say, having a good think about it and puzzle it through. You have the answers. They're there inside you. It's just to step into that arena is really what's important. Now, the second thing, let's talk for a tiny bit about the ego. The ego is a big topic, and the ego for all of us can loom very large. So what is the ego? It's that small survival part of us that has a vested interest in keeping us safe. So, and it's that adrenaline surging part that says, okay, don't cross the street yet, and pulls us back because it senses danger. And sure enough, there was a car that wasn't stopping for the red light. And so the ego is an integral part of us, but we've allowed it to a large extent to take over, and particularly take over in the sense of the, what would I call it? The people part of our lives, I guess I would say. The circumstances that, because let's face it, for most of us on planet Earth, it's not life-threatening to walk out your door. It's not life-threatening to get up in the morning. It's not, there's not danger everywhere we look. There might be pockets of danger here and there, and potential for danger here and there. But I don't know about you, but I get out of bed and wander into the kitchen and put the kettle on, and life is good. So the ego doesn't need to protect me from those kinds of things. But what it wants to protect me from is, it wants to protect me from, well, the opinion of others, and, oh, your feelings might get hurt if you do this, and they don't like it. Don't wear that skirt, or don't wear that top, or don't, should. So the ego is all about what you should be doing and what you shouldn't be doing, and oh, you've got to be careful about this and worry about that, and it's also the worry monster That's my perception of it anyway. And but it's part of us. And so sometimes there's schools of thought out there that say, well, you have to get rid of the ego, you have to suppress the ego, you have to, fight against the ego. I haven't found that to be that productive, because then the ego just wants more attention. It just, no, don't kill me off here. And it's strong. I mean, we're talking eons of practice that the ego has to keep itself safe inside of us. So rather than trying to suppress or make your ego go away or whatever, or kill it off, then I recommend that you learn to soothe the ego. So the first thing is to listen when your ego is wah, 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 and you're paying attention. You say, oh, ego, thanks for that information. I appreciate that. I know in the past that has been an issue. Not today. Come over here. And so it's like you're setting a little child, because the ego is very childlike in that way, and can be very childish too. You set the ego on your lap because it's filled with fear, right? And you soothe the ego and say, I got this. It's okay. We're not 4 anymore. We're more than 4. And I've learned how to do this better. So it's okay. Now, why don't you go and explore over there and come back later and tell me what you found? And you just send your ego off while you focus on what's most important. Now, does this take some effort? Absolutely. Because if your ego has been king or queen, or whatever label you want to put on that, if they've been ruling the roost for most of your life, it's going to take some effort to turn this around. And this is where the discipline comes in. You say, no, we're going here. No, we're going here. Not right now. We're going here. It's okay. We're going here. And so it's that consistent changing your mind, changing your mind, changing your mind. Nothing to be fearful about. This is going to be okay. It's going to be okay. So it's that trying on the new shoes that might feel a little uncomfortable a little bit, and walking a different path. So, unhooking the rope so that you can go where the goodies are. So this is internal work that you're doing, and the more heightened your awareness is about what triggers you and puts you back into that fearful mode, and then, okay, what'll get me out of this? The more you do that, then the easier it is to go from here to here. And then what happens, and I found this even just recently for myself, that the more I do this, then it's as if that fearful thought I just allow it to kind of flow through my mind and say, oh yeah, that was a fearful thought about that. And no impact. It doesn't trigger anything. And so, and of course, life always gives you a test to say, okay, are you still fearful about that or not? I confess, there's lots of times I'm going, okay, I didn't quite deal with all of that, but maybe 75%, which is a huge progress from only 10%. So we have compassion for ourselves as part of this journey, because if I've spent lots and lots of years fearful and being in lack, being in the abundance arena is really uncomfortable. If I've been sad for years and years and years and years and years, making a switch to happy, 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 happy might take some work, might take some time. It might not, but it might. And so to be prepared for that. So self-understanding is one. Soothing the ego is another. The power of belief as part of that whole process is huge. So our beliefs typically come from those that raised us and the influence of the rest of the world on us. And of course our experience weighs in there too. So what people told us and what we experienced tends to shape a lot of our beliefs about how powerful we are or not. So beliefs can go in a variety of directions, and a lot of them don't serve us. Maybe they served us when we were 2, like don't talk to strangers. Strangers can be dangerous. Well, that was the only way our parents knew to keep us safe. And maybe it's true and maybe it's not. But at 21, when I'm wanting to get a job, being fearful of talking to strangers and being told, no, don't talk to strangers. How am I going to get around in the world? Like, how is that going to work? So it's at some point changing that belief. But if we don't question the belief, it can rule us forever. And if it's one of those beliefs that is not particularly beneficial for us, it's kind of self-destructive, then that's a big problem. So questioning your beliefs. Well, what do I believe about that? And then the second question is that true? Is it really true? Has that played out? Has that belief played out enough in my life that I can say, well, yep, that's true? And if it isn't, well, what would be a better belief? What would you substitute for that? So it's like a program. It's not as if you can just, toss out that belief and say, well, it's gone. I have another one now. It's the substituting and saying, I don't believe that anymore. This is what I believe instead. Well, a shift is required to move from one to the other, because there's that old thing about what you believe can come about. So questioning our beliefs is the third really important inner work that needs to go on. And so here's number 4 that I want to give you, that because let's face it, we do not live in isolation. So community is vital when it comes to making a shift. So your tribe, the people who get you, the people who love you regardless of quirks, foibles, challenges, whatever, they say, we got your back, we're with you. Those are the people that you want to turn to as you go inward, as you work on, how do I get myself out of this? How do I move from where I really don't want to be to a place that I really desire, that is my heart's longing and has been for a long, long time? How do I do that? So it's to surround yourself, find those people, and maybe you only find them one at a time, but who can you count on to let you be you and you let them be them? Who is that? Who can walk you home and say, I've got you, I've got your back, regardless of what's going on? So that's what I wanted to share with you today. You know you can do this. You know you can make this important shift from where you've been to where you really know you belong. That heart and soul work that's vital to you living the magnificence that you are. If you're finding some benefit from the Healing Call of Cancer, I invite you to subscribe to my Sue Paulson channel on YouTube. You can also download The Magnificence Mentor, my free app, and access way more content there. Feel free to subscribe, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week. Take good care.